We're filming the TV show True Believer here in Morocco.
Jack Carr is the storyteller behind the terminal list, a craftsman whose pages move with the precision of a mission.
He said, I'd like to give your book to a friend of mine. I said, you have an early copy I can send. Who's that? And he said, Chris Pratt. So that was kind of crazy how all that happened. Dick Thompson jumps out of a helicopter holding onto a rope and crashes through the jungle.
When did you first feel like you weren't just telling a story?
You know, I always looked at it as any decision you make on the battlefield is not going to just impact that person who's your best friend and teammate, but their family as well, which is why you have to be as prepared as you possibly can, be the best operator, best leader you can possibly be, and not leave anything on the field in training. And what we owe to that next generation is to study that history so that we can make informed decisions before we send young men and women into harm's way.
What scares you most?
I really think it scares me the most is when I look back, and I didn't learn any of this while I was in the SEAL teams, but when I got back from my last deployment, I had a chance to.
First of all, this is my voice. I'm Tim Green, and I have ALS. But this podcast isn't about ALS. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. I'm a father of 5, married for over 35 years, a New York Times best-selling author, an NFL first-round pick, and a practicing attorney. This is Nothing Left Unsaid, where my son Troy and I sit down with extraordinary people for raw, honest conversations about life, its toughest trials, and greatest triumphs. My voice in today's episode is powered by 11 Labs. Today's guest led warriors into harm's way and then led millions of readers through danger, conscience, and consequence. Jack Carr is the storyteller behind the terminal list, a craftsman whose pages move with the precision of a mission and land with the weight of a life lived under oath. His work wrestles with justice and revenge, the cost of service, and the callings that outlast uniform, faith, family, and duty. We're going to talk about leadership under fire, the art of telling hard truths in fiction, what hope looks like when the smoke clears, and the responsibility that comes with success on the page and on the screen. Jack, thank you for your service and for the stories that keep faith with it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is amazing.
Looking back on the boy who loved books and the man who chose the SEALs, what's the through line between them?
Yeah, it's a lot more direct than I thought at the outset. Meaning I thought when I was a kid that I'd be a Navy SEAL, and then a little bit later, I thought that I'd be an author. So at age 7, I knew I wanted to be a SEAL. Even before that, I knew that I wanted to be in the military. It was a calling. It was in my DNA. It was in my blood. My grandfather was killed in World War II. He was a Corsair pilot, a Marine pilot. So those are the planes that had the gull wings that would fold up so they could fit on aircraft carriers. He was killed in 1945 off Okinawa. And so I grew up with his wings and his medals and pictures of him in his plane and squadron. And my dad and I are watching Black Sheep Squadron in syndication with Robert Conrad starring as Pappy Boynton, who was a Marine Corps fighter pilot and Medal of Honor recipient from World War II. So we're watching those, and there was just something in me that drew me towards service. And then at age 7, the ripe old age of 7, I find out what SEALs are. And my mom was a librarian, so we went down to the local bookstore and at the library and started looking at what are SEALs. And then I found out about underwater demolition teams. And most of the things that were written on SEALs back then came from their experience in Vietnam. And there wasn't very much, but I was already a reader. Even at that age, my parents made reading a natural part of my life. And I found out from that trip to the library that at least this is what the book said. They said that the SEALs had some of the toughest training ever devised by a modern military, and that they were some of the most elite special operations forces in the arsenal. And so as a 7-year-old, I was all in. And then as my reading journey progressed, at about 10 years old, certainly by 11, I start to move from the young adult fiction, like the Farley Mowat type books, into the books that I'm reading and writing today. So Hunt for Red October comes out then to much acclaim. I'm reading David Morrell, Nelson DeMille, A.J. Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, Louis L'Amour, all these guys who I was just enjoying the books, but when I look back at it, they were really my professors in the art of storytelling. So that never stopped. I'm reading the fiction, and then I'm reading nonfiction on my off time. So things that aren't assigned by my teachers in school, in junior high and high school. And I'm reading anything I can find on warfare, terrorism, counterterrorism, insurgencies, counterinsurgencies, warfare in general, because I know I'm going to step into that space, and I know that my war, my generation's war, is going to have some touch point with terrorism. Because also in those ages, I'm seeing Newsweek and Time magazine come across our dining room table. I'm seeing the barracks bombing. I'm seeing hijacking of TWA 847. I'm seeing Achille Laurel. I'm seeing Pan Am 103. Some of my earliest memories are of the Iranian hostage crisis. So all of those things during those very formative years really left a mark, I think, and were really impactful to me. So as I got closer to joining the military, I'm continuing to read, and then I get into the military. The reading continues, but now I go through training, and then I go to my first platoon, and September 11th happens, and we're on this journey going to Iraq and Afghanistan. And then when I come back from my last Iraq deployment, I realize that it's time for me to get out. And I'm creeping up on 20 years in the military at this point, and I know exactly what I want to do next, because in sixth grade, I told myself that after my time in the military, I'd write thrillers. So about a year and a half before I got out, I start typing away between 10 at night and 2 or 3 in the morning, because that's the only time it was quiet in our house with my wife, dog, and 3 children, and start typing away. And this is the through line part, is that I didn't realize how much of my personal experience, meaning the feelings and emotions behind things that happen downrange, would end up in these pages. I knew I'd get the sniper weapon stuffs right, and if I didn't know something about a helicopter or a ship, I could find somebody who did, and I thought that I'd get the technical things right. But then I started to actually turn my outline into a narrative. And then it became very clear to me that a lot of these experiences that I had downrange were going to end up in the pages of the book, but not the exact thing that happened, the feelings and emotions behind that thing. Example being, if my protagonist gets ambushed in Los Angeles, California, as part of a completely fictional narrative, I can think what it was like to get ambushed in Baghdad in 2006, and I can apply those to this fictional narrative. So the through line between all of those, it's more of a foundation, I would say, that all kind of coalesced at the same time. So all the reading that I'd done on the fiction side of the house, having those guys who were the masters of the craft back in the 80s and 90s be my professors in the art of storytelling, then the academic study of warfare, and then the personal experience downrange in Iraq and Afghanistan and the SEAL teams, all those kind of came together as I sat down to write that first book. So I don't really look at it as a through line, although it is a direct link, because I continued to build the whole time. So I look at it more of a foundation upon which I've been building.
I've never heard of a little kid. I always thought my dad had the weirdest. He wanted to be an NFL player and an author. And that's a really wacky combination. Now I got an even wackier one, I think.
A lot of similarities. A lot of similarities, I think, between leaving professional sports and leaving the military, because it's a transition, and it's a transition from a very team-oriented endeavor, something that you're solely focused on to be the best that you can possibly be, and then you're moving into something new. And it's going to be different for everybody when they make that transition. But a lot of similarities between leaving an elite force like special operations teams in the military and NFL, NBA, and professional sports, or Olympic athletes as well, when they age out or they move on into their next phase of life. And most of their young lives to that point have been focused on their sport, whether it be a team or individual. But that's a big step to take to move into that next phase of life. So there are a lot of similarities between professional sports and the military.
What's the truest sentence you know about courage? On the page or under fire?
Oh, that is a good one. I didn't realize there would be such tough questions on this podcast. The truest sentence about courage. I know I'm going to think of something as soon as we get off this podcast. I'll be like, oh, how did I not remember that in the middle of this podcast? Yeah, I don't know if there's a sentence. I try to talk. I do a preface to every novel where I kind of set up what's to come. And then I try to choose quotes at the beginning of each part that really have they're not just a cool quote. They really have something to do with what's to come. And gosh, I know there's some great ones out there about courage, but yeah, I think it's more about doing the job for that person to your right and left. You really don't have a choice. And really, courage is that attribute that allows you to have all the others. And yeah, it's really about doing it for the guys to your right and left because you can, because you're not worried about a leaky faucet or changing a diaper at home. You're worried about this mission at hand. And any decision you make on the battlefield is not going to just impact that person who's your best friend and teammate, but their family as well, which is why you have to be as prepared as you possibly can, be the best operator, best leader you can possibly be, and not leave anything on the field in training. So when you step into that role in combat, you know that you have prepared yourself as much as you possibly could. That's what you owe the guy to your right and left, their families, the mission, the team, the country. But courage is really the that attribute from which all the others, that allows you to have all the others.
When did you first feel like you weren't just telling a story and that you were actually carrying a responsibility?
I always looked at it as my responsibility is to the reader, but not in the way that most people might think, meaning I'm not concerned about what the reader is going to think. And by taking that approach, it allows me to honor the story and not try to placate any individual reader with any sort of worldview. I never think about that. I always just think about honoring the story. And then at the same time, that allows me, I think, to put forward my best product. And that in turn is that responsibility that I have to my family to provide for them. So I have my wife, 3 kids. Our middle child has really severe special needs. He needs 24/7 full-time care forever. He's 17 now. And so taking care of him is going to be expensive over the long term. So I think a lot of that is this drive to build a readership that allows me to do that. But at the same time, I get to honor that readership by focusing on the story and not worried about upsetting somebody or not upsetting somebody. That sounds like a horrible way to write, and I know some people do, and that's fine. But it's not the way I do it. It's all about that story.
Have you found any correlation between like stories that you obviously made fictitious with names and stuff, but kind of real life stories and fans' favorite parts of the books?
Yeah, I mean, there are some fan favorite parts of the books for sure. I'm thinking about this latest one, Cry Havoc, because that's the first one where I really took specific incidents that happened in real life and fictionalized them. Some of the ones were inspired by, perhaps, or inspired by my experience or my reading of history or whatever it might be. But this one, Cry Havoc, 1968 Vietnam, I read so many books on Vietnam, so many autobiographies of people who served there, specifically in MACV-SOG, which is a special operations unit that would launch into Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam, in denied areas, essentially. And I had these guys on my podcast. I read their books. I followed up with them with texts and emails and phone calls afterward to try to get these details right. Whether it was the gear that they took into combat, they took into Laos, or it was the type of aircraft they were on, or it was something specific that happened to them. And in a few cases, I took very specific experiences and fictionalized them for this story. One, Dick Thompson, essentially jumps out of a helicopter holding onto a rope and crashes through the jungle. And I fictionalized that and had my character do that in the prologue. A lot of these guys, they would clip onto what they called strings, which were just ropes coming down from, most of the time, King Bee helicopters. And they had a couple different ways they did it over the years, but in the early days, they would tie a Swiss seat, so tie a harness with another piece of rope that had like a carabiner on it, and then they'd clip in to this rope dangling from the helicopter, and the helicopter would pick them up. And as they would get picked up, even especially under fire, they'd start to also move this way, not directly up, and so they get dragged through the jungle as this helicopter is trying to evade this fire. And so I put that in there as well. The loadouts that they carried, meaning how many rounds they took, how they set up their claymore mines when they were in some sort of a layup point, something like that. So this one was the book where I really took specific experiences from people, and not just people that I read about, but people that I now know, and got to fictionalize those. And I talk about that in the acknowledgments and in the author's note. And I even got to weave a few of the guys' names into the story, even if they weren't in Vietnam in 1968. 68, if they were there in 65, 66, or 69, something like that, I still got to put their names in as being part of a task unit that's put together to go help rescue somebody. So it was cool to give a little nod to them by putting their names in the book as well.
That's awesome.
I've read about veterans describing the quiet after the mission. Did you have that quiet? If so, what did your quiet sound like? And did writing change it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's quiet after a mission because you're so busy after a mission. You get back and you have a hot wash right away, getting everybody together to talk about what went right, what went wrong, what you can do better next time, and then you capture that in something more official called an AAR, after action review, I think it is. And so you do something more official that so you capture those in writing, and then eventually we're putting that up on our version of the cloud so that the rest of the team, and I think eventually the rest of the special operations community could see and get those lessons before they came downrange. Because a lot of times you're talking about how an enemy has adapted to what you've been doing previously, and then how you're in turn countering that. So you're trying to capture these lessons learned, not just for your small platoon or task unit, but for an entire SEAL team, and then for a special operations community writ large. But when I got back, so we were doing that, and then you're processing a lot of times prisoners, handing them over to either like MPs or to Iraqis or Afghan National Army people or whatever it's set up, depending on what years that you were there. So a lot of times you're doing that. You're doing shooter statements. You have it's almost like CSI Baghdad or CSI Ramadi or CSI Kabul or something like that. You're like collecting evidence, just like I saw on TV shows, essentially, and you're like tying the weapon to the person, and you're taking pictures of where that stuff was, or cash, or passports, or who knows what. So you're collecting all that with photographs, and just like CSI, really. And then you have to you don't make the case, but you bring all that evidence back, and the idea is that now you're turning them over to the Iraqi government, and then they have to make the case against this person with this stuff that you've collected. So there's a lot that still goes into it after a mission, and by the time you've done all that and taken care of your gear, regassed up the trucks, whatever, you're gonna change out the batteries in your nods, your flashlight, your IR laser, all that stuff, so you're ready to go again. Then by that time it's time to maybe grab a little something to eat and go to sleep. So there wasn't really the time to overly reflect. I mean, you're always reflecting on things to make yourself better next time you go out on a mission, but there wasn't anything other than just getting ready to go again. And yeah, so that was how it was in my experience anyway.
Jack, before we started, you mentioned that you're recording from Morocco. Are you there on business or pleasure?
We're filming the TV show True Believer here in Morocco, so that's the second book in the series, and we're over here in the home stretch finishing that up. And
I was going to say, I thought it was coming out soon.
Dark Wolf is out, so that's a prequel origin story. And at the time of this recording, there are 6 of the 7 episodes. The 6th one just dropped today when we're recording this. So by the time this comes out, I would guess the 7th and final episode will be out as well. So that one is out, number 1 on Amazon Prime, which is great. And now we're finishing up this one, True Believer, and this will then roll right into post-production, which means a ton of editing, and then you roll right from post-production you lock the episodes, and then you move into like the marketing side of the house, while at the same time, hopefully, working on the next show, whether you're writing it or you're on set or whatever. So now we might have multiple shows going at the same time. We'll see how things work out, but it's a busy time. But I love Morocco. I put it in the second book because I'd been here in 1993 before I joined the military, just traveling, and I was picking places for the books that I'd been to before, so I could describe. So I didn't have any money back then, so I couldn't like just travel around and go spend some time in these places. So I picked a lot of places where I'd already been. So Morocco was one of those. Ukraine was another one of those for this particular book. So now we're all here filming with like 350 people just down the road here, about 15 minutes away, and getting close to wrapping it up.
How involved are you in that process?
Yeah, as involved as I possibly can be. So I'm an executive producer. I'm a writer on it. So I wrote the first episode of this one with the showrunner, David DiGilio, amazing guy. We have an incredible team. So it's me, it's David DiGilio, it's my SEAL buddy, Jared Shaw, who gave Chris the original book, which he read and then optioned immediately. Max Adams, former Army Ranger, Antoine Fuqua. It's just an amazing team out here. And so I'm involved in pretty much every aspect of production, from writing to casting, notes on every script and outline, every major decision. So it's pretty involved.
What prepared you for that? Is it just reading a ton? Do you think is that what kind of got you, I guess,
Well,
ready for that?
for the books for sure, but then my first time on set, I just paid attention. So I was on set for the first. I was still an executive producer on the first one, but I didn't really know much about production because everything I know about production came from movies about making movies, probably. And so I got on set and saw all the similarities between making one of these shows in the military. Everybody, there's all these different departments, just like there are at a SEAL team. From a breacher, so you have an explosives guy on set, an armorer, same thing. You have in a SEAL team, you have an armorer on set. Mobility people here, you have mobility people in the SEAL teams. Medics, you have medics here. You got to feed everybody, so that's craft food services. So there's a lot of similarities there. But then what's been really cool for me is to see my buddy Jared, who I said gave the book to Chris, so the reason that's even a show, and to see him from first season really be there every single day on set, and now knows all the cameras and angles and all the story things and all the beats that need to be hit to tell a story. And it's just amazing to see him in particular, because he's here every day and I just come when I can because I have to write the books. So I'm just here for like 10 days at a time type of a thing in every location. And this has been South Africa, Morocco, Toronto. So I've been Morocco twice, South Africa once, and Toronto twice this time around. And it just to see how much like he's learned. So for me to see that's pretty cool, because we kind of started at a similar level, and then he's just gotten so good at this visual storytelling piece. And he plays Boozer in the show, so he plays a SEAL, and it's just an awesome guy. So I try to learn as much as I can on set whenever I'm on. And but really for me, it's about being able to tell the stories and add value where I can.
I'll speak for everyone and say we can all see that care in your work. Hey, Jack, does any part of the SEAL ethos still guide you today as a dad and as a writer?
Well, I don't like when they wrote down the SEAL ethos. They did that in about 2000 and I don't know, 5, somewhere around there. And they got everybody together on this island called San Clemente Island off the coast of California, and put together like a written down ethos type thing. And for me, it would look kind of read like, remember in The Office, the Dunder Mifflin mission statement? Like, and then people started putting it up on like they did a book about it, but people started selling it or like putting it up online and say like, guess what company this is from? And you read it, and then you get to the end and you find out, oh, it's Dunder Mifflin from The Office. And so for me, because I didn't come in with that, it wasn't like part of my training and all that stuff. It just kind of got dumped on us later on. I always kind of just associated it with Dunder Mifflin. So there are some good things in there though, but I won't pretend that I have it memorized. There was another one. There was an unofficial SEAL creed from Vietnam, and I do have a copy of that. I've never seen it online, so I've never posted it because I don't want to be, if it's not out there, I don't want to be the one to put it out there. But I took one line of it. I thought that was appropriate, and I put it into the latest novel here. So there is one line that's the unofficial SEAL creed from Vietnam that starts off the book, which is pretty cool. But for me, in the SEAL teams, it was always about, and here's the correlation between where I am today and what I did in the SEAL teams, is that we were always trying to be a better operator and leader today than we were yesterday. And same thing now professionally, it's I want to be a better author today than I was yesterday. I want the next book after this one to be better than this one. I want the show that we're filming right now to be better than Dark Wolf. I want the show after this one to be better than the one we're filming right here. And then personally, I want to be a better husband and father today than I was yesterday. So I think it's all about that constant improvement. Of course, in a sane way. You can get crazy about these sorts of things as well, but in a sane and appropriate way, do everything better today than you did it yesterday, and then pass those lessons along to in my case my kids. So I think that's probably the thing that remains similar between what I did in the SEAL teams and what I'm doing today.
What's the line in the Vietnam?
I'll tell you, it might sound a little hardcore right here. I'm not sure because there's no context to it. Yeah, so it's the only line that I'm gonna give up from the SEAL Creed, since like I said, it's not out there yet. But this is the Vietnam one, and it's unofficial. Of course, I want to highlight that. And it says, "I shall inflict so much personal pain and grief, suffering and outrage that as a person you shall have but two choices: surrender or die." So yeah, a little hardcore out of the gate right there.
Yeah. It's fitting for Vietnam that time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then you talked about how you want to make everyone a little bit better, that whole 1% improvement kind of mentality. When you go back and you look at, Dark Wolf and it's been received by the fans extremely well, and season 2 is coming out, all that good stuff. What do you when you watch it, are you like a harsh critic, or can you enjoy it?
Well, I try not to be a harsh critic when I watch other people's things, because I want to enjoy it. And I don't want to annoy my wife and kids. I mean, the worst thing to do is be a cop and watch a police movie, or a firefighter and watch a firefighter movie. Probably same thing NFL, like to watch a football movie. It's probably the same thing. You're probably like, that's not how it would go. No one ever does this. What's that? What is that guy doing? And same thing watching like a SEAL movie with a SEAL. Like, so I try not to judge, especially now. Like I was always that way. But now that I know how much work goes into making one of these shows, and so even if I see something that is maybe objectively terrible, so this is art, so it's all subjective. But if something is close to being objectively awful, I still know how much work went into that, and I still have so much respect for all the work that went into that, because it's not just the star up there or the director. There are so many people underneath them that are working so hard in their individual department, and I just respect them so much for working so hard, zero recognition essentially, and they make these shows. So I know how much went into it. So I try not to, when I watch mine, of course, I'm like, how can I do this better next time? And I'll catch little things and be like, oh man, I swear I gave that note not to do that in the edit, or something along those lines. And there's always going to be things that slip through. There's always going to be things that you think you can do better. Like if I go back to my first book, 100% I could do that better today. But that's just life. That's just how it goes. I want to be improving. I want to look back and say, I could have done that first book, that second book, that third book, could have done one way better with what I know now. But at the time, I also want to be able to say that's the best that I could do at the time. And if I can say it's the best that I could do at the time, then that's very, very fulfilling. And I know I gave it my all. So same thing when I watch the shows, I'm always like, okay, what can I learn from Dark Wolf that I can then apply now to True Believer? And now that we move into post production, what can I do specifically in the edits that can make this an even better show than Dark Wolf? So always trying to learn. I approach everything from the perspective of a student. So I'm a student of warfare when I was in the SEAL teams, remain a student of warfare today, but just from a different angle. And then student of writing and screenwriting now, and just try to always be learning.
Did the show coming out change the way that you're writing the book?
Great question. And the book that you'd be able to notice it with would be book number 5, because book number 4 came out right as we were starting to film the first season of the show. So in 2022, in 2021. So the book that came out in 2022 would be the one that has the influence of everything that I learned, both writing on the show, or editing, and then being on set. So that would be the first one, and that's book 5, In the Blood. And then everyone from then on, I think, has the influence of the shows, and more so in like the way to like how flashbacks, or how these conflations that are in the first season of the show, how those become part of James Reese's memory. And so I think I've leaned into that more after the shows, after my experience on set, and being on part of the production team, being an executive producer. So yeah, book number 5 would be the one that you can tell, and I can tell, and I think if readers read them all, and they know that I said this, they'd be able to tell as well.
And do you have a favorite? Do you prefer writing the book or writing the screenplay, or?
I think if I was just a screenwriter, then so yes, if I could be one, it would be an author novels because that's just me. Like if people hate this book, there's no one to blame but myself. And someone will like it. My mom will like it, but that's just one that's just me. Now, when I give this over to Hollywood, now they can really do whatever they want with it by contract. So even though I'm a part of it all and I'm a part of this amazing team, they can essentially do whatever they want with it. And if I didn't have this, something that was pure, then just me and the best I can do at the time, then it would be very hard to, let's say, just give an idea to Hollywood, give a executive summary, give an outline that they then buy and then gets developed. To see that change means that there's nothing pure out there from my original idea. It's all an idea that's morphed, and the only thing that people will see is what it's morphed into. And there wouldn't be this base material. So so I could do one, for sure, writing the books, but doing the two, I like being able to turn this over and also know that we're going to tell this story through a different medium. This is a visual medium. Things are 100% going to change. The book First Blood, written in 1972 by David Morrell, very different than the Sylvester Stallone movie in the early 80s. Both awesome. So I realized we're telling a story through a different medium. There are many more constraints in Hollywood. There's zero constraints when I write this book. There are, I don't know how many constraints, but there are budgetary constraints. There are actor availability constraints. There are, even today, weather constraints out here. The wind is howling out here. And now we have to figure out like how we steady cameras and how we film some scenes earlier that didn't have the wind howling, but it's supposed to be the same type of a scene. So you have those kind of constraints. You have a time constraint. So you have to tell, in this case, it's going to be 8 episodes, and each one of those episodes is about an hour long. Each one of those needs its own story arc, and then there needs to be an overarching story arc for the entire 8 hours. So those are a lot of constraints. This can be 100,000 words. It can be 115. It can be 120. It's about 140 is where this one came in. And I can do anything I want in there. Zero constraints. Don't think about budgets. Don't think about locations. Don't think about time. None of those things. Zero constraints on that side. So it's very different. But I do now like doing them both. And hopefully the one makes me better at the other, especially with this amazing team that we have here. But there's a difference between handing an idea over to Hollywood, I think, is like if you're a screenwriter or just a writer in Hollywood, and then having base material that's yours that you know is going to change when it goes to screen, but you still have what you did, and that's I like that.
In kind of the same vein, have the actors impacted the way that you wrote the book?
Yes, I wish that I had written the Ben Edwards character from The Terminal List, as well as Taylor Kitsch played him, and even as well as the writers in the writers' room wrote him in that first season. But so they just elevated his character to a whole nother level, much better than I'd done in the book. And then Taylor brought a whole other level of like humanity and empathy to this character, who in the book is very much more one-dimensional. So I wish I had done that. So I think going forward, that probably now that becomes part of my experience. So of course, it's going to impact how I do things going forward. It's not just something that I pass right by. It's something that now becomes a part of my experience, and then will naturally impact how I do things in the future. So that one in particular. And then we're seeing that kind of same thing with there's this character Jules Landry in True Believer, the second book. But in Dark Wolf, he gets introduced. So you're seeing him years before the events of True Believer. And I don't want to ruin anything, but he's not the greatest guy in True Believer. But we have Luke Hemsworth playing him, who is just awesome. And once again, brought this level of kind of humanity to just a horrible character from the book. So it's very interesting to see what these actors bring to their roles, and then how that impacts not necessarily the books, but how it impacts future scripts. Because when you start, you have, let's say, 8 scripts, and then you have an actor that comes in and brings something you didn't expect to a role in season or in episode 1. Well, that's going to impact episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's changes constantly happening as you go and evolve. And not all shows are like that. Some shows are like, nope, you only write what's on the page. There's no writers on set. You're just capturing exactly what's written down there and just get these shots. And a lot of shows are like that. And ours is not. Ours is very collaborative. Actors bring so much to their roles, and they love to do it also. They love to say, hey, I think he would do this here, or I think she would do this, or why am I doing this, or wouldn't I ask about this? And those are just like the obvious things, but then they also, through their performance and through their facial expressions and through their interactions with other characters and how they look at each other, there's all these different levels to what they can bring out in a character and what they do, and what life experiences they bring personally to a role as well. So we always want to, it's the bottom line is that we want to make the best show possible, and best idea wins. There's no egos in this, and because it's all about making the best show possible. And once again, we're honoring the people who are watching, who are going to spend time with us that they're never going to get back. And that's something I think about when I write the books as well. Someone's trusting me with their time, and that's a big responsibility. And I never want to waste that time, because once it's gone, they're never getting it back. So it's something I think about a lot.
And for like casting, did you get to help pick? Because I think the actors, especially, you've referred to it a couple of times, but in your show, it's like the actors have made such a big impact, and you have big name actors, truthfully, too, right out of the gate. Is that something that you helped decide? Did somebody set you up with them? How did that work?
Yeah, so it's so Chris Pratt optioned it. So right away, he's the lead, he's the star, and that's who I wanted. That's exactly who I wanted to star in it. So that's pretty cool. First season, I wasn't involved in casting because I was brand new, didn't know anything, but I learned. So I got to kind of like after the fact see the tapes and all that stuff, but I wasn't in that. I was in every aspect of the show except for the casting first season, and then for Dark Wolf and for True Believer, I've been in every aspect of the show to include casting. So I've been involved with every pick for the spinoff that are Dark Wolf and now True Believer. But you have a casting agency. They're reading like kind of the requirements for the role. They're reading the scripts, and then they're putting a list together, and you narrow that list down. You give your picks, your like top 3 or something like that. They all go to the showrunner, and he whittles it down from there. And then you all talk about it, and then you watch some tapes, you watch some reads, and then reconvene. And for us, what we do is different than a lot of shows too. Is we have a conversation with the actors, and we want to see if they're a good fit for the show, because we don't want some crazy person coming in here and making everyone miserable. So that is also of vital importance to our show, and not necessarily to other shows, but that is a very important thing for us, is to bring people on that are that we know are gonna get along with everybody, be cool people, and people you're gonna want to spend the next 7-8 months with, because these things take a long time to film. So that's important to us as well.
It's so funny, anything with Chris Pratt, because I just picture him in Parks and Rec. His character Andy was just so funny in that. It's hard when I see him in a more serious role, not to picture him being that goofball character. But did you ever did you ever almost like have anybody? Did you have somebody in your wish list, or somebody, an actor you were talking to, that, I don't know if you're allowed to say, that would have radically changed the show or changed how it was portrayed? Or
Probably. And some people just aren't available, or something falls through, they get another offer that's we can't afford them, something like that. So that's just like normal stuff that happens. But with Chris in particular, I wanted somebody who, like, I thought about Tom Hanks in the 80s, who did all comedies and then takes a risk with Philadelphia in the early 90s, and then really can do whatever he wants. So back when I was writing the book in December of 2014, when I wrote the first words, Chris had not risen to A-list stardom yet. And I'd seen him in Parks and Rec and seen him play a SEAL in Zero Dark 30. And I saw that transformation. And so I thought, this is the guy. This is the person to do this. And then it's crazy how we got there. And he's the lead and executive producer, and we're all dear friends now. And Jared, my buddy from the SEAL teams, gave the book to him as a kind of he thought he owed me for something I did in the SEAL teams, and which was really basic. All I did was help him as he got out of the teams, just introduced him to some people and followed up with them and offered my help, and he that made a big impact on him. And so 5 years later, after I did that, he heard that I was writing a book and called me and said he wanted to say thank you. And I said, yeah, of course. How's it going? And he said, well, I'd like to give your book to a friend of mine. And I said, you have an early copy I can send. Who's that? And he said, Chris Pratt. So that was kind of crazy how all that happened. But yeah, for casting, it can get, you people have, they have multiple offers maybe at the same time or something like that, or there's the schedules don't align or whatever. But the casting departments are supposed to really go through all that and whittle it down and make sure that you're not wasting your time looking at somebody who can't do it because they're already committed somewhere else. So it's an interesting process.
Jack, can you share one deployment moment you didn't put on the page that still impacts all your scenes?
I don't know if there's a singular thing that informs every scene that I write, but it's more. I remember 2005, 2006 in Ramadi, where the IED threat was fairly high, and I remember thinking that as an officer and as a leader, I can be worried about all that. I can be worried about that garbage bag on the corner or that pothole or whatever else as we're going towards a target, or I can trust that we've mitigated the risk as much as we possibly can. I have people up in the turrets of the gun trucks that are looking out. We have some electronic countermeasures and some other technological type countermeasures that we can use against some of this threat. And so I thought, you know what, if something happens like that, it might be fate. And so don't waste bandwidth worried. Use that bandwidth to be the best operator and leader that you can and get these guys through this mission and home. So I kind of resigned myself to fate when it came to some of those things that we couldn't control. And I think that probably still impacts me, or at least I try to have it impact me when you can't control what someone thinks of your show or your book, or wants to say something horrible about you online and you happen to see it or whatever it might be. And, you just kind of got to realize that you can't control that stuff. And so if you happen to see it, move on as fast as you can. Open up that bandwidth to things that are going to allow you to create and to do something positive or to connect with a family member or whatever it might be. But don't get bogged down in something you can't control, like some crazy person on the internet or some crazy review or whatever it might be. So there's that. And then putting things in relative terms, even in buds. I think in SEAL training, even or those early days in Hell Week, when you're seeing people quit in droves, because about 80% of people are going to quit throughout training, and most of those are going to be during Hell Week. And I thought about all the books that I'd read, documentaries I'd seen, even movies about World War II, Vietnam, World War I. And so as I'm doing push-ups in the surf zone at midnight, then people are quitting to my right and left. I'm like, you know what? I'm not running out the back of a landing craft onto Omaha Beach and running across open terrain while machine guns rain down bullets from an elevated position. You know what? Those guys did that so that I could be here testing myself on this beach in Coronado, California, and pursuing my dreams. So I thought about that a lot. Put things in relative terms, and I thought I can do some more push-ups here. I can be cold for a little while longer. Those guys went through a lot more than I'm going through right now.
How do you balance hard technical accuracy with emotional truth in your writing so the story can still breathe?
The technical accuracy is it's something I think about, but it's not a techno thriller. So I'm not writing techno thrillers like Tom Clancy was. So I want to get the details right, but not go overboard on the details. These are political thrillers, espionage thrillers. They are not these techno thrillers. So I want to be accurate, but enough so that if someone was in the submarine corps for 20 years and they read a submarine chapter, that they know that I put in the effort to get it right. And same thing with the shows. Like, we want to make sure that we're getting these details right, so that you're not pulled out of the story when you're watching it because of some technical inaccuracy or a scope on backwards or a finger on the trigger or sweeping your buddy or whatever it might be. Like, get those things right, so it doesn't take somebody who has experience in, let's say, law enforcement or the military, it doesn't take them out of the story. So that's important in the books, and then also important in the TV show.
James Reese walks the razor's edge between revenge and justice. Where do you draw that line and why?
Yeah, I mean, these are more an exploration of that. So it's not really me drawing a line. It's me seeing the world through James Reese's eyes and asking what he would do in these situations, because they're all made up characters. And I think there's a reason why revenge movies, books have always done so well. There's a reason why there's 6 or 7 Death Wish movies. And that's because these characters are doing things you can't do in real life. As much as you want to, you can't do these things. But in fiction, in films, you get to go on these journeys with people, which can be a little cathartic because you get a little bit of justice through their actions. And that's why reading's so important, not necessarily specifically for this, but when it comes to experiencing life through someone else's eyes. And that it can come through nonfiction because you're reading about someone's, but you're reading a lot more of kind of facts and those sorts of things. But in fiction, you're really getting to know a character, and you can see the world through this character's eyes, which can help really develop empathy and compassion. And as we read less and less, and we're glued to our phones more and more, the phones and the apps seem to do the opposite of what reading does. So you lose that empathy and compassion because of an algorithm that wants to get a certain reaction from you, or wants to influence your thoughts and behaviors because that keeps you glued to the screen longer, which benefits really no one except said company that's keeping you glued to the screen. That they could be a lot happier as a person, and we'd be a lot better country if you put the phone down and got into the pages of a good book.
It's so eerily similar to what my dad says.
Oh yeah.
Literally from putting yourself in their shoes to become more empathetic. I've been hearing this my whole life, Jack.
Hey, I was reinforcing it.
Yeah.
What does moral injury look like in your books, and how do your characters try to heal?
I mean, I don't think about it really in those terms. It's more of telling this story. The characters are going to come up against obstacles. They're going to have to be very creative in how they solve these problems. And they're going to evolve along the way, taking things from previous books, learning things in current book, and apply those to emerging problem sets as they go. But they're going to definitely take hits, both psychological and physical, throughout the course of the novels. That's just how it goes. And how I deal with that is solving that problem, or is evolving, treating that problem. Maybe not solving in every case, but making those psychological hits, those physical hits now part of that character's experience going forward. So that's another thing that I think has made the books resonate, is that it's not just the same character that's picked up and dropped into a new scenario to solve that problem and save the world, and then now it's saving this one over here. It's this character is evolving, hopefully, as we all are, because it's something we all have in common as human beings, no matter where you live or your station in life, is that we're all on a journey. And so James Reese is on a journey in these novels, and he's learning along the way, just like every single person on the planet. So hopefully we're all learning something and then applying past lessons to current problem sets as wisdom. So he does that. And I think that whether people recognize it or not is another reason why the books have resonated with people.
I think that's a key part of any series. As an audience member, it's great to see the character development and maturation. On an unrelated note, Jack, I'm curious where your faith has been the most tested, and if it changed the way you love your family.
I mean, it's crazy that you asked that question right now after recent events in Utah. But I think we're impacted by Charlie Kirk's assassination the way a lot of people are. First, horrified that things like this are happening, and then realizing that kids are witness, I think, in this case to it. But regardless, that death is online. My kids saw it before I could get to them, and like that has also caused a reexamination, not just for a lot of people out there, but for us as a family as well. And we'll be making some changes because of this, and it's because we got too busy with life. And with our middle child, when he was born, we stopped going to church because it was just hard to take him there. With his special needs. So that's been difficult. The family dinners have been difficult because you're having to take care of someone with these special needs, and the other kids are, done with their dinner in 5 seconds, and you're still trying to, to work essentially, and try to love all these kids the same, but dealing with one that has these specific issues, and so we'll be, I think, going back. I think we will definitely be re-examining just how we've gotten too busy, work, building, we'll start putting the phones down, and go back to church like we did in the past, and we'll really be be slowing down a little bit, I think, because of this. And I think a lot of people are as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like that's the loudest voice. There's a lot of craziness responses to it, but it seems like the most common thing I'm hearing is people saying like what are we doing here?
Yeah, yeah. So I think he's going to have just a huge impact on people. Unfortunately, it's in death, but it's going to amplify that the message, and the broadest message is that faith and family. So I think it's going to have a huge impact.
I agree. He inspired so many people. Jack, what did you learn about leadership in the teams that actually works around a kitchen table?
Yeah, I think it's the importance of trust. When I look back, and I didn't learn any of this while I was in the SEAL teams, it was mostly baptism by fire and doing the best you can for the people you're leading. But when I got back from my last deployment, I had a chance to finally take a breath and think about those things, like why was I successful as a leader? Okay. Well, when I look back on it, I think it's the trust established both up and down the chain of command, taking every opportunity or taking every encounter as a opportunity to build trust, first to establish it and then to build upon it. So, meaning whether it's a brief to your guys or to, let's say, somebody higher ranking, well, through that brief, you're establishing trust because you're expressing your competency as a leader when it comes to understanding the problem set to which we are engaged or about to be engaged, let's say in Iraq and Afghanistan. So that's an opportunity there. Getting out to run the obstacle course just with the guys when maybe you don't have to at a certain level of leadership because there's a meeting or you have to do something else. Well, taking that time to get out there and run it with them to show that you can still do it and you can still beat most of them. And it's also a time to talk and get to know the guys out there, get to the range with them, even if maybe as an officer now, as a senior ranking officer, you're going to be outside the target, controlling aircraft and managing kind of that more of the operational level that get that kind of bridge between the tactical level where you're on the battlefield and the operational level that's supporting you on the battlefield. So getting out there and getting to the range when maybe you're not that guy kicking the door in anymore and running into the houses, you're on the outside coordinating everything while still going and doing those runs with the guys in the kill house or just getting on the range or whatever, because it's a chance to build that camaraderie and also show that your skills haven't atrophied or maybe they've gotten even better and you're still beating these new guys that should be beating you. And so really, or just an encounter in the hallway, a good morning, asking about the family, whatever it might be. But every single encounter is an opportunity to continue to build and establish or build this trust. And that goes both up and down the chain of command. So I think that trust really was the overriding tenet of leadership. I think that when I look back on it all, that's the one that stands out to me as the most important.
When trust was fragile with the SEALs downrange or as a creator working on a deadline, how did you rebuild it?
That's a good question on deadlines because I really missed it with this one. It was supposed to come out in June, and now it's coming out in October here because this was the most heavily researched novel to date, and I didn't realize really how much more time, energy, and effort it was going to take to write every single character's perspective through the lens of 1968. They own the regardless of how old they are or what. Let's say they're a Russian GRU, so Soviet intelligence agent who's 70. And it's 1968. Well, he had 70 years in order to form his perspective on a certain event or situation. And then I have a young Navy SEAL who's 25, let's say. And so he had 25 years before 1968 that informs his perspective and decision making. And every character was like that. So it wasn't as easy as a contemporary, I shouldn't say easy. It wasn't as efficient, maybe, or I don't know. With a contemporary thriller, we're all on the same page. I can say, okay, this person is this age now today. So I can it's much more, I guess it's easier. Yeah, sure. It's easier to think of someone who's 40 years old today. Okay, well, I know what informs them in contemporary times, but in 1968, I have to think a little bit more about it. Okay, if someone was 40 then, what would they have lived through? Okay, that just takes a little more time. And so I'm now probably reestablishing trust with my publisher in order to try to hit the next deadline after this one. and down and in the SEAL teams. Was that the other part of the question? In the SEAL teams, maybe. Um, um, Gosh, I don't know. I'm just constantly working on it. So I'm sure there are failures along the way that I tried to always be very honest so that the guys coming up below me wouldn't make the same mistakes. So I found like that helps. I was never very good at the administrative side of the military, meaning I was all about performance when it came to the battlefield and training to prepare yourself for war. When it came to other things you have to do, like fit reps and evals, and you have to do these professional development courses online and stuff like that. Wasn't really my focus. And but guess what? The people above you in the chain of command certainly focus on those things. And you could be the worst platoon in the SEAL team, but you've got everything in early. That's something for the people above you in the chain of command, no matter how incompetent you may be. So I wanted to make sure that my guys knew that even though I wasn't good at some of these things, that they should be good at all of it. And it can make a difference. So for me, it's always about being open and really wanting the guys who came up behind me to do the job better than I was doing it for them. And that's genuine. And I think they could sense that. And being prior enlisted first, so being a SEAL sniper first, also meant that I never really had to worry about making a certain rank. I never would anyway, but I didn't have to at all because you already have this time in as an enlisted guy. And so if you're going to do 20 years, you can do those 20 years without having to like, oh, what am I going to do for my career? I never had to think about that because it's the profession of arms, not the career of arms. And that's for a reason. And precision in language reflects precision in thought. I look at writing the same way. I look at it as a profession, as a calling. And that's different. But that was a very long way of saying that it comes back to that trust and honesty and really genuinely wanting the people behind me to do it better than I did it for them.
It's hard to find that level of genuine trust. Also, something you just said reminded me of another question I wanted to ask you. What do you think James Reese still can't answer about himself?
Ooh, these are all great questions. I'm gonna have to remember some of these because I'll have to answer them in the pages of the books. I don't know if there's a question that he's asking specifically, but it's more of a weight, and it's this weight that he knows that his family was killed in that first novel because of him. He blames himself, and now he has other people that he cares about, and so that's a constant tug to try it again. Or is he putting these people still in danger? They're going to end up like his first family, like his wife and daughter. So that is certainly a weight that he carries, but not just carries, because now he has to ask himself those questions about moving forward. So is he going to move forward when he has this weight that he carries, and are the people that he cares about now going to end up the same way? So that's what's more of a weight.
Is that a theme that you thought about, like when you're writing the first book, that would be kind of an ongoing tug of war?
Each book has its own distinct theme, and I find that helps keep me on track. So on my I have a computer that I just write on. It doesn't do anything else, and so I have a yellow sticky that has the theme of that book right next to the mouse pad. And the first one was revenge, and I expanded it a little bit to be revenge without constraint. So every chapter or every paragraph had to directly or indirectly, more importantly, come back to that theme. And that, I think, really helped keep me on track as a writer. And really, when I got the book to Simon & Schuster, they didn't really have too many edits. My editor over there, most of the edits have all been the same for all the books, and those are something along the lines of, can you explain this thing for someone who wasn't in the military for 20 years and has no idea what you're talking about? So a lot of them are that. Or if there's a twist, hey, you need to give a couple more breadcrumbs earlier, because I'm intimately involved in this story for a year, so I know how it's going to end. But I think, everyone is going to know how it's going to end. But I've been over this and I've been living it for a year, and the person who picks it up for the first time is not. And so that's my editor in New York is great about that. So, hey, put two more little hints in here that are gonna, so when that payoff does come, when that twist does come, it doesn't look like you just dropped it in out of nowhere. They can say, oh, of course, Dad, how did I not see that until just now? Instead of like, oh, that's weird. Where did that come from? There's a very different reaction from a reader and from a storytelling standpoint. You have to set these things up. So yeah, what was the first part of the question again? I started thinking about all the things that I need to do for the next novel.
That was it. Just what question?
Oh, so
What question
the
came?
theme. So the second one really
Yeah.
was a journey of violent redemption. So it was redemption. I changed it to violent redemption. The third one was exploring the dark side of man through the dynamic of hunter and hunted. So each one, the fourth one was really about what the enemies learned by watching us on the field of battle for the last that time. I think it was 17, 18 years. So I have a question like that for each one. The next one, In the Blood, was really a sniper centric novel of violent resolutions. So each one has had these distinct themes that I use to help guide the writing process. And this current one is about brotherhood and betrayal. So that's the one that guided the writing process for Cry Havoc.
What's a historical blind spot you think Americans should urgently understand?
I mean, there's so many that because we're not very good at learning the lessons of the past and then applying those to current problem sets. Um, the biggest thing that I can think of is jumping into the pages of books to understand history, understand how we got to where we are today, why there are certain things in the Constitution and state constitutions, whatever it might be, how we got here, what is the underlying bedrock of our nation, what are some of the lessons that we could learn from the Civil War, from the War of 1812, from World War One, from World War Two, from Korea, from Vietnam, from Desert One, from Grenada, from Panama, from Mogadishu, from First Gulf War, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, because there are a lot of lessons in that history right there. And what we owe to that next generation is to study that history so that we can make informed decisions before we send young men and women into harm's way. So we don't really do that. And the example for my generation in the SEAL teams anyway was that we had all sorts of lessons from the Soviet experience in Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. And if we looked at that experience, we didn't draw. If we drew any conclusions, we did not draw the right ones. But yet it was right there, and that was not that long. That was just over a decade before 9/11, and we didn't even have to go back to the British incursions. We didn't have to go back to Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. We had something right there, 10 years of a superpower going into Afghanistan to study. And if we took lessons, like I said, we took the wrong one. So for me, it's more of this responsibility that we have to learn the lessons of the past and then apply those lessons going forward. So I don't know if we're ever going to be good at that. And certainly the phones don't help. Oftentimes I think back to, hey, if this was the 1860s, and we're in the post-Civil War era, what if we had phones in our pockets that allowed us to and companies were profiting off our division, and they could use this tool that was with us 24/7 to do so? Would we be the country we are today? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think about that with specifically like the algorithms. Like, you can't say to, I'm just making up names, you couldn't say to Facebook, you're not allowed to use kind of hate in your algorithm and not the others, because then Facebook would be at a huge disadvantage. But if we just didn't allow if we didn't allow hate, like you're going to see things you don't like. But if we didn't make the primary objective of the algorithm to show people things that's going to anger them and make them hate so they interact with it, couldn't you still have couldn't you still have social media? Couldn't those companies still make a ton of money and just have people not so
Apparently not as much.
divided?
Apparently not as much. There's more, I guess,
Yeah.
there's more profit in the division.
I know there is now, and I'm saying it's like I'm not one for government involvement in a lot of stuff, but our brains obviously can't handle it.
Yeah, they're supposed to bring everyone together, right? And
Yeah, connect.
what is the? I mean, in my last book, I talk about Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, and Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park, and it comes back to that. We in the movie they talk about it and they put it through the Jeff Goldblum character when he asked, we spent something along the lines, and we spent so much time, figuring out if we could. We never asked if we should. And so same thing with these with social media, AI, and quantum computing, and everything else that's speeding up all of this. The kind of the incendiary nature of these devices that just suck us in, and it's awful. So you really have to have, essentially, I think today, that the ability to be financially free, to put that phone down, hand it to somebody else, hand it to an assistant. I'm working on that myself. And for me, I'd love to go back to 1985, I think. Or if I could go from like 1980 to 1989, I think I would just live in that decade and just redo it over and over and over again, because it was so awesome. But in the absence of that, I'll just watch old 80s movies.
You really know about AI with unsettling intimacy. What scares you most and what gives you hope?
That's the one right there. I try to remain hopeful. Seems to getting harder and harder to remain hopeful for the future. So I do my best. But I really think it scares me the most is what we've been talking about, is how we seem to be eating ourselves really from the inside in this country. We're definitely our own worst enemy here, and maybe someday we might have to fight for one another again, not with each other, like we seem to be doing right now. So I am, I try to remain hopeful for the future, but at the same time, I realize that this path into the future is certainly being dictated by companies that don't have our best intent there, our best intentions are at heart. It's just it's tough, and it's tough to even think about. So I tend to just focus on what I can control, and that's me, my immediate family, maybe a little bit broader circle with the books and TV shows and anyone who follows me on the social channels or something like that. But that's the circle that I can influence, and so I can't really worry about too much outside of that circle because I don't have an impact on it. So I try not to waste bandwidth thinking about that. Just try to be the best person, best citizen, best husband, father that I can right now, best author. Try to do all of those things a little better every day, and that's what I can do. So I don't spend too much time worried about all the other stuff that I can't control. And by that I mean I try not to dwell on it, but it's very difficult because of course we're being inundated with all of those negative all those just constant bombardment with from every app on my phone. So it's a tough thing to not pay attention to, or not dwell on, I should say, because you have to pay attention to it because you're being bombarded with it constantly. But I just try to focus on what I can control.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like it should be so easy because I'm in the same. I feel the same way about it as you, and that's like, well, then why do I have it? It's like you need it to some degree for work and stuff, but I have the apps on my phone that I know I shouldn't have. I don't open them a lot by sheer willpower, but it's so easy. I don't know. Yeah, it's like
Awful.
going back to the flip phone.
It's awful. I want to go back to a flip phone. I want to go back to a landline where someone has to actually call me. They have to think about, oh, is it 10 o'clock? Should I be calling this person? You never think about that with a text. Or should I be calling this or too early? No one ever thinks about that sort of thing. It's a constant bombardment. So it's, I would like to put these away at some point. But once again, if you're building a business, you have to let people know you exist. And so I look at kind of writing is very entrepreneurial in nature, meaning I have to have the product. And let's say this was a computer and it's 1977 and I'm in my garage. I have to build said computer, and then I have to be the CEO, the CFO, the CMO. If there was social media back then, you'd be the social media manager, and the product has to be the best it can be as well. So you have to get the word out. You have to do all of those things as a single person. And then maybe once enough people know about your product and buy the ones that you built, then maybe you can hire a CFO or a CMO or whatever to help you so that you can do what you love doing if you're on the creative side, or you love being an engineer and developing these products and computers and phones and all the rest of it. But at the beginning, it's a very entrepreneurial type of an endeavor, and writing is the same way. You have to let people know you exist. You have to offer them something of value throughout the year, so that they're aware of you when the actual book comes out. So now it's not a just a 1 week a year thing to let people know that it's coming out, where your publisher is going to put an ad in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and you're just going to go back to writing the next book after you do one interview and a book tour. No, it is every single day of the year that you are building, and you're essentially on tour, or building this readership every single day of the year, because you're competing with every app, every TV show, every movie that's ever been made in the palm of someone's hand, that they can get it at any time. They don't have to wait till 7:15 on a Friday or Saturday night, or 9:30 if they're going to go to a later show on a Friday or Saturday night. You don't have to wait till 8, 9, or 10 p.m. for your favorite show to come on, or 6 o'clock for your news to come on. All of it is constant, and all of it is meant to keep you out of the pages of a book. So as an author, you really have to get creative on the business side of it in order to connect with a readership, so that they'll put those phones down and spend time in the pages, or spend time listening to the books. And I have a great narrator, and the audiobooks are people love the audiobook. So, but it's a constant thing. It's a constant thing. And part of the allure of being an author was that I could go to a cabin in the mountains and just write and not have to do anything else. And then as I got closer to publication, I realized that no, it's 20 at the time, 20 to 18, and I'm gonna have to do a lot more than I anticipated at the outset. And that's just how it is. Got to adapt.
We were talking to Nick Pizzolatto, that I told you, the writer of True Detective, and he was saying how when people now are saying to him, like, when you're writing, you're really like competing to be the second screen, because they're going to have their phone out while they're watching the show, which is just it's so crazy to me. But
I know, and I've done it sometimes, and I find myself, I just kick myself, and I take the phone and I put it in another room, or I keep meaning to put it in another level of a house. It's terrible. I hate having the phone with me when I watch a show. It's terrible.
What did Chris Pratt understand about James Reese that told you he's got it?
I think timing was a lot of it. And I think he was looking for that thing that was going to test him, something that was going to be a little darker than what he's done before. And I think he was looking at, so I think the timing was a big part of it. But then also he has a direct connection to the SEAL community through his best friend, Jared Shaw. He's very patriotic, and a man of God, of course. And so I think all of those things really came together, and he saw this as a new book coming out, and a chance that really checked all the boxes that he was looking for at exactly the right time. And he just identified with that character, his capabilities, his drive, and then of course the story as well. So so I think the timing was a huge part, and it happened to be exactly what he was looking for, and he happens to be the exact right guy to bring this character to life. So I guess you could call that luck or fate, or whatever you might call it, but I certainly feel fortunate.
you mentioned earlier that he like, you kind of had him in mind when it started going down this path, but when you saw him on the screen, was it even better than you thought it was going to be, or was it exactly kind of what you expected?
Exceeded expectations at every turn. It continues to do that, to include today. We just filmed down the street here, and yeah, it continues to exceed expectations. And it's just such a good guy and a dear friend, and just feel so fortunate that he wanted to do this and wants to continue to do it. So that's yeah, fantastic.
The range to do Parks and Recs, Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Terminal List.
As your universe expands, how do you protect the center that the stories come from?
Yeah, so I just can't turn something in just to hit a deadline. Just can't get to 100,000 words and decide it's time to start wrapping things up. And who knows, maybe, I mean, I don't think I'd ever change, but there's a lot of pressure from the publisher to get something in on time. Just get it in type of a thing. And I haven't done that yet. So it's, so yeah, you just have to stay true to that story. You have to just look, I mean, I just continue to look at it as art, essentially, my form of expression, and the readers are the people that, I don't want them to waste their time with me, like we talked about earlier. So that's really what keeps me honest. I don't want to waste someone's time
who's never going to get that time back. So the story has to be as good as it can possibly be. And if it's a little bit late, then that's just going to have to be how it goes. Um, so that's a way to protect it right there. I haven't really seen any reviews, and I don't look at it too many of them anymore. But you see some that come through, and you see for other authors, I see some that say, "Oh, this it's obvious that this author, whether they did or not, that's the other part of it. Like maybe they didn't, maybe this is the best that they could possibly do." But you see the review, this author just got to 100,000 words and wrapped it up. Like that's fairly, you see that after a while, and you're on your 20th book with the same character, whatever it might be. So guarding against that is something that I do think about. So there's a lot of heart and soul in these books. There's a lot of continuing storylines that have been seeded in earlier novels. So for me, I'm just going to do the best that I can moving forward, and not turn it into just churning out a book just to get one done, and have people look at it and go, hey, it's a lot thinner than the last one. If it only takes if it's thinner and it tells a great story in that, I guess that's something. But these things are pretty meaty up to this point anyway. But yeah, it has to remain all about the story.
Would you feel pressure if you felt like you wanted to tell a new story? Do you feel pressure, like not necessarily a new story, but if you wanted to like wrap that story up, with the pressure of all the success it's had with the TV show and the popularity of the books? That's another thing I was thinking about too, kind of in the same line what my dad was asking.
Yeah. So, I mean, my publisher has been so fantastic. I think the second book, True Believer, they took a big risk on not just taking out the first third of that book, which is James Reese's journey across the Atlantic, up to Mozambique, to Mozambique, to a hunting reserve, and taking the lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan and applying them to this poaching problem there. You could have essentially just started the book there and not had that journey, but I thought that would be disingenuous to the reader, and just have all these traumatic events of the first novel. All of a sudden, he's now just essentially starting on a new adventure. And they went with me on it. They went with this journey, and I think they wouldn't have done that with a lot of people. But I'm so lucky that I have an editor that trusts me, and that takes risks with me. Same with this. Like the safe thing to do would be to continue James Reese in the book that's coming out in October. But instead, this is his dad, 1968 Vietnam. So that's a risk. I've heard other authors say they really want to write something else, but their publisher won't let them because they have a successful series character. And I have not had that experience for whatever reason. They took a risk on me with True Believer. They took a risk on me with this, and I have some other things in the works also outside of this universe that they're taking a risk again on me. And of course, we'll look at numbers, and if it doesn't make financial sense for them, then they probably won't continue. But one, I love writing the James Reese character, so I will be going back to that. But then I also want to expand the readership and essentially have a restaurant that's open for more than one night a year, because one book a year, that's essentially what you have. So I will expand going forward. My first nonfiction came out last year on the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing. I'm working on the second nonfiction right now that'll come out in 2026 or 2027. So it's also about expanding kind of those offerings at the same time while you're maintaining quality. And but for me, I'll always come back to James Reese, I think, just because I love the character, and he's really given us this life that we had, and allows me to fulfill this childhood dream, and it's through that character. So I'll always be coming back to him.
Has a letter from a reader or veteran ever changed you?
I don't know if it has changed me, but there have been a lot of, and they're letters that get sent, like snail mail type letters that people write that end up at Simon and Schuster, and they send on. I see a lot of direct messages. I see a lot of comments, because I still want to go on there and thank everybody who says that they got the book, or they watched the show, or they listen to the podcast, or whatever. I still like to get on there and say thank you and hit that heart button, because I do feel extremely grateful that they have taken that time to spend with me. So I try to, but in the process, you see all the bad things as well. And you're like, I wish I hadn't seen that. And so that's just a part of it. So, but an author couldn't have done that 30 years ago. You couldn't have reached out to people except on book tour, where you're actually shaking somebody's hand, which I love to do as well. But now I get to thank people at the end of the day and jump on there and hit that heart button. But there's been a few letters, people just saying that, and not even just letters, but on book tour, every single stop, there's somebody that says something that, I mean, they say, hey, you saved my life type of thing because of this thing you said on the podcast. And you're like, wow,
I didn't even remember saying that, or because of the way you end your podcast, okay, or because of the sentence in the book, you really put things in perspective for me that I was struggling with, and like all those things. Or hey, you inspired me now that the first book came out in 2018. So now I'm getting the ones that say, hey, I read the book in high school, and now I'm in the military, or now I'm in law enforcement, and you inspired me because of the book or your character or whatever. And I'm a product of that as well, from reading all the books that I read growing up, the TV shows, the movies, the power of popular culture. That certainly influenced me along the path. So now to hear that I'm doing that is, I didn't know how I knew it would come maybe, but I wasn't quite prepared, even though I knew it was going to come. And because David Morrell, who wrote Rambo, we talked about him earlier, wrote First Blood and Rambo First Blood Part 2 novelization, Rambo 3, which is a novelization of scripts. But he was told by people that when he's touring like Walter Reed Medical Center and talking to someone who's like missing their arms and legs, that, hey, I joined the military because of Rambo. And he's like, oh, hey, how do you take that sort of a thing? It's so tough. So, sometimes people tell me that, and I'm like, wait, did you think about finance? I mean, like, I don't know. Is this the right move? I don't know. But everybody's going to make their own choices and all that. So, but yeah, so there are all sorts of letters that I get and comments that I get, and in-person conversations that I have with people that are extremely powerful. And then the nonfiction book in particular, there was a lot of that because the military, the Marine Corps in particular, moved on fairly quickly in the wake of Beirut 1983 because it was the largest loss of life, Marine Corps loss of life since Iwo Jima in World War II. And the Marine Corps, it seems, wanted to move on fairly quickly from that because it was chalked up essentially as a loss. So to write Targeted Beirut and have all this help from family members who lost loved ones, and from guys who were there digging through the rubble with their bare hands with a crowbar, a shovel, and to be able to tell those stories finally, and a book that when someone asks about the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing, they can say, we targeted Beirut. And to really capture what it was like over there for those guys. And so that was extremely powerful. There were hugs and tears at every single book signing event. And it was an emotional book to write. And it was a very emotional book even to go on tour and talk to people about and sign. So yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. It's very powerful.
Before we close, will you brag about your family for a minute and tell us one thing you want your kids to hear about their dad when they read his books years from now?
No, for me, I always think about how much harder it is on my wife because I'm here, I'm in Morocco, I'm on set all day. People bring me coffee or whatever, a water, a snack, like I'm doing that. And then I'm hanging out with my friends at night and talking about future projects and all this stuff. And I'll go to dinner with Chris Pratt right after this and talk about some the future, our next steps with this, where it's going. So I get to do all that. In the SEAL teams, I got to go downrange with my best friends and teammates. And she was at home taking care of our kids when our second child came along with a special needs. She's doing that, so she is tough, and I just can't thank her enough for doing all of that for our family. It's allowed me to fulfill two dreams at the SEAL team, and then writing. And hopefully I'm providing a future for her and our children, and specifically our special needs middle child. So for me, she's just incredible. So yeah, I couldn't be doing this without that support for sure. So yeah, most proud of her and how she's dealt with the kids, and especially in my absence, and getting to do things that that she doesn't get to do. So now, as we're moving into this next phase, the kids get a little older, being able to do some more things together is high on the list. So yeah, I'm bragging about her because of the way that she takes care of these kids and takes on so much responsibility, and it's so hard. So much harder. It's much harder for the people that stay behind, the spouses that stay behind, especially in the military and the SEAL teams. Way more difficult than it is to go downrange to Iraq and Afghanistan with your best friends and teammates. So, and one thing that I talk to the kids about is you never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day. And I didn't look at it like that, but what I did for Jared in the SEAL teams, I was just trying to help a guy out who was getting out of the military, and I would have done that for any. And I did it for plenty of people who were getting out, staying in, just try to help them as much as I possibly could. And then he remembered it. And that's the reason we have a show today, is because I helped him out in 2012 or 13 or something like that. And that's the reason. But wasn't looking for a payoff or anything like that. But yeah, never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day. I think that's pretty good advice, I think.
Now on to our final word segment, where we ask our guests a few rapid fire questions. What was the happiest moment in your life?
Oh my goodness. I think most people say the birth of their kids, but for some reason it seems to me like wedding night, because it was just awesome going around and saying hi to everybody, and like the feeling in the air there was, that jumps to mind. And then I had a very similar experience actually at the premiere of Dark Wolf. I had the very similar feeling of of our wedding, and it was just so much fun. I guess the reception part of it, I guess. And like this just feeling, this euphoric feeling as you're going around talking to everybody as you're starting this next thing, or celebrating this marriage. And so same thing with the show. It was really interesting that it was I felt it at the first one, but this second one, for some reason, it was even more powerful. And I don't know why that was, but just was. So those two certainly stand out. And then of course the birth of my children.
What is the biggest adversity you've faced?
Yeah, that's our middle child for sure. And it's we look at it like we got him because we can handle it and help him reach his full potential, whatever that might be. So that's it for sure. Yeah.
What are you most excited about?
I'm excited about everything, really. I'm pretty, I don't know. I come to set and I get that a lot. People are anyway, it's just fun. So I'm excited to have these opportunities. I'm excited to continue to grow, to learn, to expand the readership, hopefully create some new readers along the way, as many as I possibly can. I have a book club. I try to do what I can for small independent bookstores, local independent bookstores, libraries, because really the reading has been the foundation of everything for me. So I'm just excited about having these opportunities to be able to create these new shows and to write these books and to continue to expand. So really, it's that I guess I attained the goals that I wanted to as a kid, and now it's about just getting better and doing it better, and then on the professional side, getting more efficient with it as well, so that I'm not constantly doing all these things, but get to a place where it's I can spend more time with family rather than worried about building all the time, and just do it at a more sustainable pace, I guess. So I'm excited to work towards that.
What advice would you give your younger self?
I did a lot of reading, so that was good. I stayed on the path, made it into the SEAL team, so that was good, and wrote the books and did that, so that was good. But here it is. I would definitely have not shied away from learning a language, and I probably had the opportunity to go and really capitalize on whatever I was learning in school. But I do wish that I had. I think there's just going to lead a richer, fuller life, and there's going to be something different about. Someone was telling me yesterday about the new iPods or whatever that translate for you, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it sounds. It's yes, it's convenient, but there's these like, I don't know, pathways in your brain that open up by learning another language, and there's something about not knowing someone else's language and having to figure it out as you're traveling, with hand gestures and facial expressions and that sort of thing. So you're problem solving, and now you just pop in your pod and you're good to go. I don't know. There's just things are just getting a little too easy. So advice I would give my younger self would certainly be to learn and then maintain a foreign language.
Here's a good setup, and don't be afraid to do a little promotion here. Do you have any book recommendations for us or for the listeners?
Oh my goodness. Well, interesting you should ask that question. But Cry Havoc coming in hot on October 7th. And people can pick this up on hardcover, ebook, audiobook. But other than that, no, I do have like 5 books that I recommend quite frequently. And one is Once an Eagle by Anton Meyer, which was written in the late 60s. And it's really a book about leadership.
even though it's historical fiction and follows two guys from before World War I up to Vietnam. And one guy is an enlisted guy. He gets a battlefield commission in World War I. The other guy's always an officer. And he's kind of like the political animal who's always ahead of the former enlisted officer. And but it's really a case study in leadership. And the main message of the book, really, I think, is to see your character, and your reputation will take care of itself. So reputation and character are two different things, but see your character, and your reputation will take care of itself. So don't worry about that reputation, worry about your character. So that one I recommend. I used to gift it to people in the SEAL teams. I'd write a letter that would go in the front that would kind of set up why I was gifting them this book. And then I would say in that letter that there's another one at the end that's my take on what you just read, but you can't read it. And that's why it's at the back and it's sealed until you get through this book. And it's pretty thick, so you can use it as like some sort of blunt impact weapon or a doorstop if you need to as well. It's dual use technology. And so that one for sure. Ayn Rand's Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and The Winds of War and War and Remembrance, historical fiction by Herman Wouk. So those are ones that I recommend to people more often than not.
The name of our podcast is Nothing Left Unsaid. Do you have anything you want to say?
Ooh, that's a good way to end it right there. Oh man, I mean, I'm so grateful for you guys for having me on, for people that take a risk on me as an author, specifically when I was a new author that no one had ever heard of before, because I wasn't coming from, didn't have a social media presence. No one knew who I was. It was all about the book. So it's really just a thank you, really, to everyone who watches the podcast, listens to the podcast, listens to the books, reads the books, watches the shows, leaves good reviews out there to counter some of the negativity across the board. So it's really just, I want to thank everybody out there, because I feel sincerely grateful every single day.
Jack, thank you for the years in uniform and for the pages that honor those years. You reminded us that courage can be quiet, that love of family outlasts the fight, and that a story can carry truth where lectures cannot. Thank you for joining us today. May God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Bless you guys as well. Thank you guys for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. Best to you both.
Jack, I'm going to sneak one more question in,
Yeah,
and then we'll let you go. At the end of every podcast, we try to ask people, now that you got to know us for a little bit and kind of know what the show's about, we ask for recommendations to kind of veer us off into different paths and people we would never talk to or never met before. So I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh man, that is a great question. I mean, there's so many interesting people out there. It all depends what you guys are interested in. John Stryker Meyer, amazing guy. We're talking about Vietnam. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about adapting. He'd be amazing. John Stryker Meyer, incredible. Has a couple books on Mac v. SOG in Vietnam. Dick Thompson, another Mac v. SOG veteran who has 2 books out on his experience in Vietnam. So I would say those guys, that generation, talking to them, and then you can juxtapose it with the things that my generation has told you guys, or that we've talked about. So I would recommend those guys most certainly.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And like my dad said, thank you for your service too.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. This has been amazing.